Hello there. 2 videos in one day. Oh well, this one is a kind of biology class special because if I was with you, our first lessons about how genetics moves and is used by organic, messy machines to build life. If we were in that room, I hope you'd be able to feel the excitement and the passion about what is going on this beautiful, wonderful planet. And I can't do that because I'm not there. But what I would have done, given the nature of my 2 videos before, is I would have read to you about 2 things, because before you learn and before it becomes stuff you're going to be tested on, I want you to have that moment of wonder, of oh my goodness. Not only that, oh my goodness, isn't life on Earth utterly astonishing and amazing, but that, oh my goodness, that as a 16, 17-year-old, you're allowed to understand it. Now that is amazing. For this video in the sun, and also maybe to get away from a 7-year-old who's enthusiastically trying to get me to carry on doing Joe Wicks's workout, I thought I'd bring you to my allotment, because every single year, it's a game of life and death in this place. I'm not that good at it really, if I'm honest, but it keeps me busy, sort of keeps me out of trouble. And so, welcome to another part of my life, which is the allotment. We're going to our fruit arch. Maybe I'll show everyone more of this as we go through. We'll sow some seeds together. Everything is a bit ramshackle. The key word is Heath Robinson, but that's possibly lost on all of you. And here we go. We're going to go into the workhouse of the allotment, which is the polytunnel. So the frost last night won't have affected anything in here. Wonderful thermodynamics and heat retention. So here we go. Here's the polytunnel. Look at that. Sowed, panic sowing radishes, fastest vegetable on the planet. And then my wife said, but we don't like radishes. True. So where do we start to ooze passion about biology and what it really means to be able to understand how you make yourself? All of the instructions. And you're okay, you've done the structure of DNA, you understand that there's a lot of information inside every single cell, and that helps them replicate themselves. And from GCSE you understand that occasionally, just occasionally, the world's most precise and accurate photocopier gets it a teeny weeny bit wrong, and we call them changes. We call them mutations, which until Marvel came back was really seen as a massive negative. But without those mistakes and those changes, we couldn't be different. And without difference, we couldn't select. And without selection, you can't exist. Now, although humans have moved well beyond that, and we've got medicine, and as we're seeing now, the science is utterly astonishing, but it's based on a basic knowledge that by the end of this unit, you are going to have. So I've got 2 extracts I'd like to read. First of all, it's from the man himself. He of independent means. This is all of his 4 major works, not his most popular, not his bestseller. The only bestseller in his life was about worms, but certainly the 4 that really put together the picture and story of his life. And to give you a sense of where we're going, I'd like to read you just the last paragraph of On the Origin of Species. Okay, so Darwin finished this book. He was pushed into it by Alfred Russel Wallace, who'd come up with the same idea, the theory of natural selection, so the best things have babies and the rest of them die. But he was a true scientist. Everything he did was based on experiments. And as we'll see in the second thing I want to read to you, we were so close. Have you ever been to Darwin's house where he thought all of these things? It's only in Bromley. What a privilege, what a beautiful place to walk the walk that he did every afternoon in isolation with his thoughts. And he finished essentially the final chapter of On the Origin of Species. He finished it just trying to get us to think. And I want you to think now about how this molecule, this DNA that can copy itself because it's a code, and encoded in that is a complexity we're only beginning to understand. He asked us to do this. It is interesting to contemplate an entangled bank, clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth. And to reflect these elaborately constructed forms, so different to each other, and dependent on each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us. These laws, taken in the largest sense, being growth and reproduction, inheritance, which is almost implied by reproduction, variability from the indirect and direct action of the external conditions of life, and from use and disuse, a ratio of increase so high as to lead to a struggle for life, and as a consequence to natural selection, entailing divergence of character and the extinction of less improved forms. Thus, from the war of nature, from famine and death, the most exalted object which we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of higher animals, directly follows. There is a grandeur to this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or one, and that, whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. What's amazing is no matter how many times I read that, a tingle goes down my spine every time I get to that bit. There is a grandeur to this view of life. Darwin did not know about genetics. He hypothesized. He thought, if people are like their parents, there must be something being passed on. Science at the time hypothesized of this thing that could be passed from one to another. Now, Gregor Mendel, the monk, probably read Darwin. There was a copy in Mendel's library in his monastery. But did he understand what he was doing in relation to everything? Who knows? Because they never met, and Darwin almost certainly never read Mendel. And if he had, maybe Darwin himself would have then thought of DNA. But going forward from that, there's another thing that we're privileged to see, and that is the idea that on our chromosomes, our 23 chromosomes, is all the instructions. But what we have discovered since all of these books, and the second one I'm going to read an extract from, have been written, is that the instructions can be interpreted in multiple ways. And that is how you get so complex forms of life. Before, if we just said there were 10 billion letters and they made 3 billion words, and from those 3 billion words you could make 10,000 recipes, that would only give you 10,000 different things that you had the information for. And that's not enough. And how does the environment act on those 10,000 recipes? Well, ultimately now, genetics is astonishing. It's moved way beyond my full understanding of it. And here we're just going to see just a little extract to just make you think now deeply about when you add Darwin to the idea of knowing about genetics, then we can start to really understand what's going on in your bodies. So I'd like to read to you an extract from Matt Ridley Genome, just at the start. Some of the science now is a bit dated, it's about 20 years old. Dated in the sense it wasn't wrong at the time, and it's not wrong in a sense now, but just it's moved on so much. So I'm just going to read to you to make you think about how lucky we are. So moving on. This is Genome, this is Chromosome 1, Chapter 1. It's called Life. And he's just going to start talking to make us think about where we learned about these things and actually what we're talking about. When we say ATGC, what does that actually mean? So Matt Ridley Genome. In the beginning was the Word. The Word proselytized the sea with its message, copying itself unceasingly and forever. The Word discovered how to rearrange chemicals so as to capture little eddies in the stream of entropy and make them live. The Word transformed the land surface of the planet from a dusty hell to a verdant paradise. The Word even eventually blossomed and became sufficiently ingenious to build a porridgey contraption called a human brain that could discover and be aware of the Word itself. My porridgey contraption boggles every time I think this thought. In 4,000 million years of Earth history, I am lucky enough to be alive today. In 5 million species, I was fortunate enough to be born a conscious human being among 6,000 million people on the planet. Now 7. I was privileged enough to be born in the country where the word was discovered. In all of Earth's history, biology and geography, I was born just 5 years after the moment when, and just 200 miles from the place where, 2 members of my own species discovered the structure of DNA with the help of Rosalind Franklin, and hence uncovered the greatest, simplest and most surprising secret in the universe. Oh, mock my zeal if you wish. Consider me a ridiculous materialist for the investing such enthusiasm in an acronym. But follow me on a journey back to the very origin of life, and I hope I can convince you of the immense fascination of the word. I am not ashamed to be so excited to have the privilege of teaching young people to own the knowledge of how they build themselves. So, yes, there's an assessment at the end. Yes, there's an A-level to be done. But chapter, unit 4, call it what you will, DNA, proteins and protein synthesis. It is the stuff of life. So even though I'm not there, have a little Mr. P on your shoulder going, oh, this is cool, this is so exciting. And when it's difficult, ask for help. See you all soon.